everyone. A few weeks ago, I discussed this deck, the Tarot RDR by Luminarte. I do believe it is a bootleg deck, and I mentioned at that point in time that I believed it was a bootleg of a Spanish deck called the Universal de Waite. And I also mentioned that this deck had also been bootleg before. I just got a copy of that other bootleg. It's this one. This is a deck that collectors call the Edith Waite deck. For whatever reason, I do know. The Universal de Waite says by Edith Waite on it. And I guess someone had at one point in time figured out that this deck was a copy of the Universal de Waite and just started calling it the Edith Waite deck because it's using the same art by Edith Waite. I truly doubt that Edith Waite is a person that exists, but that's why this deck is called the Edith Waite. So I thought it might be fun to kind of like take a moment to look at this particular deck and maybe even compare it to the Tarot RDR and see who did it better. So a little bit of background about this particular deck. This was sold in the like late 2008-ish. So I guess it is about 12 years old at this point. And it was sold at dollar stores in Canada. As we can see here, this back says it was imported by Encore Sales for Concord, Ontario, and that it was made in China. I did do some sleuthing when I was attempting to find a copy of this, and I did find that there is a Chinese printer. You can find a listing for them through Alibaba or AliExpress. I can't remember the name of that site actually. But yeah, you can find their listing and they will apparently still print these decks. You just have to buy like 3,000 at a time, which seems a little bit overkill. Who's gonna move 3,000 of these decks? They're not the most amazing. So yeah, so that was the basic history of this. It's some sort of bootleg. It got sold through dollar stores in Canada, probably for under $5, and they can occasionally be found today in various used markets, thrift stores, etc. And that is what the cards look like. Probably put it back over here. The art is similar to what we've seen before, but I do have to say the quality of this deck, it's dollar store. It is everything you would expect from the dollar store. It is flimsy cardstock, right? And very shiny. You can see that shine very well. Look at my ring lights. So that's disappointing. I have also noticed that there are several cards that have some printing issues. Let me see if I can't find a good one. You can kind of see it on the Hermit. There's got to be a better one. Hang on. Here it is. Death is really, really dramatic. So here on this death card, can you see this lighter strip that goes through the card? Right? That's definitely a printing calibration problem. And we also have this weird like green blob right there. So the deck is full of moments like that, which are deeply sad. In addition, there are issues where the paper has like a slub in it. And I don't know if that's the correct term. Let me see if I can't find one here. But what I mean by that is like when you're knitting, sometimes the yarn has a little bit of an extra thickness to it. You know, there's something caught in there. And when you knit that into your fabric, it's called like a fabric slub. Or, and this isn't necessarily the most profound one, but can you see like right there how there's this little raised area to the card? Right. The deck is full of those types of things. So there's unevenness to the paper. The cardstock is pretty terrible. The lamination is shiny. You've got weird little bends and crinkles. I don't know if you can see that. There's an area right about there. One time I need you to, there it is. So yeah, this is not a high quality deck by any stretch of the imagination. But what it does offer that Tarot RDR does not is all the titles are in English. And that makes a difference for a lot of people. There are plenty of people who refuse to buy Los Scarabæos decks, however good or bad they may be, because Los Scarabæo does this multilingual title thing very frequently, which is problematic for a lot of people. The other thing that a lot of people disdain the multilingual titles for is the fact that they can cut into artwork. And I noticed the Ace of Swords really was a good example of this. So let me pull out the aces from both of these decks. Right. Let's put these both on the same plane. All right. So if you see here, you can see that there's a lot of green hills below the mountains here on the Edith Waite, but on the Tarot RDR, there's a tiny little strip of that, the upper part of those green hills. And you can also see where the top of this card was cropped in a little bit. Here, the point of that sword is a little distance away from the margin line. Here, it's right on the margin line. So this is definitely an example where they cropped in the art a fair little bit. It also looks like there's some left-right cropping. There's definitely more mountain on this card than there is on this card, if you look off to the side there. Is it something that would be immediately obvious? No, but if you want to see as much of the original art as possible, yeah, that would make a difference for a lot of people. So that is definitely something to be aware of when you're looking at this deck. This is another card that shows the cropping issues pretty darn well, actually. Here, the bottom of the card is only very lightly cropped. Do you see how there's this tiny little stone right about there that you can see? But you can't even see that stone here. There's like a very tiny tip of it. So a tiny sliver has been taken off the bottom, but a very large part has been taken off the top, right? Look how far down the moon is here as compared to here. The tips of the swords are kind of off margin here, so you've got left-right cropping there. But yeah, so yeah, that can be an issue for some people. So why don't we, at this point, just kind of flip through this one so we can kind of see what each card looks like. I'll even zoom in here in just a second, and then we can kind of look at a few of the cards between the Edith Waite and the Tarot RDR to see who did it better. All right, so that should be a nice little zoom in so that you can see this card really nice and clear. Let's just take some time to kind of flip through it. It is a very pretty deck as far as the coloring goes, and I do think that the coloring is a lot more saturated than the Tarot RDR. Let's just grab this. Oh yeah, you can totally see that saturation level here. Look how pale the Tarot RDR is in comparison to the Edith Waite. The paleness is not bad, actually. It looks way more natural in person than it does in the Edith Waite. But you can see that printer error right through the levers. There's some printing issues there. Big old printer strip. And again, I really hate the blurred out tetramorph here. There's a weird scratch, I guess, through the lamination. I don't know if you can see that. Big printer's stripes. Here's a weird thing. There's like a gray stripe, I guess, diagonally through that flag. Again, you know, I mentioned this in my Tarot RDR video. It looks like the artist just forgot to draw the stuff in on the Seven of Cups, which is unfortunate. But aside from that, it's not a bad card. There's some weird printer's dots. I guess that's in the card. I don't know. There's some weird stuff happening there. It's always hard in these last few cards. And there's the Two Swords. I must have had that out of order. Well, that's a quick flip through. Let me go get the camera set back up again, and we will kind of do a quick comparison of the Edith Waite deck and the Tarot RDR. All right, so, oops. Looks like we've got the decks set up here, and the idea is to more or less figure out which deck did it better. If I was going to recommend this deck, which one would it be? And spoiler alert, it's that one, the Tarot RDR. I hope you can tell just by looking at these fools, but the color difference is so much nicer on the Tarot RDR. As you can see, there's some really harsh mustard yellows there. They go slightly more lemon here, and the flesh tones are a little less Donald Trump, a little bit more peach as opposed to Cheeto. The other thing is there's no comparison with the cardstock. This is flimsy and poorly laminated and printer issues galore. The backs are nice. I do appreciate the Edith Waite backs more than the Tarot RDR backs, even though they're both kind of a little cheesy. But this cardstock is just unfortunate in so many ways. This deck is practically perfect. The Tarot RDR, it is cut immaculately. Each card is nice, and that's some seriously good cardstock. The coloration is adorable. And yes, the art got cropped in a bit, but it was thoughtfully cropped in so that you don't really notice it unless you're doing a direct comparison. The printing also looks a little sharper. It's definitely less blown out. Not that either deck is terribly blown out. And it's matte. Like, yeah, you get a little bit of a sheen, but you definitely don't get, I can see the light bulb, right? So of the two, if this art is compelling to you, I don't think it's actually worth searching out a vintage Edith Waite. Maybe if you're the type of person who has to have English on the cards, maybe then, right? I did note in my walkthrough of the Tarot RDR that there is English on these cards, but it's not perfect. For instance, what do we got here? The Chariot there has 2 R's. What else are some of the other ones? I know the King of Pentacles here, there's no space between of and pentacle. One of the kings is the Ring of something. Yeah, here's the Queens of Cups and the Ring of Cups. So there's some interesting English in this particular deck. The Edith Waite deck does English better, but it's not perfect. For instance, I know that one of the things that my ESL students struggle with is article usage, definite and indefinite articles. When do you use them? When do you not? And we can totally see that here. Like, we would not say in English, the strength, right? Unless we were going to say, like, he had the strength of 10,000 men, right? But when we're talking about strength as a quality, it would just simply be, he has great strength, right? Something to that nature. So the definite article here just kind of rings a little bit awkward. The Wheel of Fortune, kind of the same thing. Like, yeah, I mean, like, I can see that. But in tarot, we always just have Wheel of Fortune. The card title's long enough, right? The Justice, similar to Strange, we wouldn't say, you know, the Justice, unless we're talking about the Justice League, but then it's, you know, Justice is actually forming like an adjective to modify league, and it's just so bizarre. So yeah, there's a few things there. The Death, right? The Temperance. So there's some issues with the article usage, but that's relatively minor. So yeah, the only way that I would recommend this deck, if you absolutely had to have this art, this spoke to you, this was a deck you had to have, would be if you could not stand multilingual titles. Other than that, this is a really lovely deck, the Tarot RDR. So if you like the Edith Waite art, tracking the deck down from Argentina is probably your best bet. All right. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today, guys. Have a wonderful day.